My name is Arya. When my mom remarried, I was 18 years old. I never wanted this story to happen, but the heart is not always obedient. It is a story filled with feelings I did not expect, feelings I did not want, but feelings that were real. It is hard to tell, but it is the truth. Before Holden, my world was quiet and small. It was just me and my mom. My father died when I was 15, and his death broke something in me that never fully healed. The house turned silent. The air felt heavy, and the garden behind our home lost its beauty. My dad had been the one who taught me to ride a bike, who showed me how to plant flowers. After he was gone, even the flowers stopped blooming. They became dry and lifeless, just like our days. My mom worked long hours as a nurse at the hospital. She left early in the morning and often returned late at night. She was always tired, but she still smiled for me, even when her eyes carried shadows. I loved her deeply and wanted her to be happy, but I could still see her pain. She carried her grief quietly, the same way I did. At college, I studied art. Painting was my secret language. It was the only way I could say the things I could not speak. When sadness filled me, I painted with dark colors. When happiness touched me, I painted with bright ones. But for years after my father's death, all my paintings were heavy with darkness. One evening, something changed. My mom came home after work, and I noticed her face first. She was not only tired, she was glowing. Her smile was wide, and her eyes looked alive again. She sat down and called me close. "Arya," she said gently, "I have something to tell you." I felt nervous. Her voice sounded different. "I met someone," she continued softly. "His name is Holden. He is a good man." I froze for a moment. My mom had not dated anyone since my dad passed away. I did not know what to say, so I asked the only question that mattered. "Are you happy, Mom?" Her eyes sparkled as she answered, "Yes, Arya, I am happy." Her happiness mattered more than anything else. I smiled and said, "Then I am happy too." A week later, I met Holden for the first time. He came to our house for dinner. I was nervous the whole day. What if I didn't like him? What if he wasn't truly kind? When he finally arrived, I studied him carefully. Holden was tall, with calm, gentle eyes the color of the sky on a bright day. His hair carried streaks of gray, and when he smiled, his whole face seemed to light up. He didn't try to play the role of my father. He didn't force anything. He was just Holden, a man who had made my mom smile again. "It's so nice to finally meet you, Arya," he said warmly. His voice was deep, steady, and kind. "Your mom talks about you all the time." I smiled back, a little shy. "It's nice to meet you too." Dinner that night was not awkward. It was easy. Holden asked me about college, about my art. He listened carefully, and I could feel that he truly cared about my answers. That reminded me of my father, who had also been a good listener. The memory warmed something inside me that had been cold for years. After that evening, Holden became part of our lives. He visited often, and whenever he was around, my mom looked younger, happier, lighter. They laughed together. The house, once so quiet, began to echo with sound again, sound that felt like hope. 6 months later, they told me they were getting married. My mom's eyes shone with joy, and I could see how much she loved Holden. I told them I was happy for them, and I truly was. Holden was gentle, respectful, and good to both of us. The wedding took place in our small backyard. It was a bright day. The sun warmed the grass, and the sky stretched blue above us. My mom wore a simple white dress that made her look like a young girl again. Holden looked at her as though she was the only person in the world. I stood watching them, and even though part of me missed my father terribly, another part felt grateful that my mom had found laughter again. After the wedding, Holden moved into our house. Life changed slowly but surely. It was no longer just my mom and me. It was a family of 3. At first, I felt strange hearing his footsteps in the mornings or seeing his coffee mug beside my mom's. But Holden was always careful. He never entered my room without knocking. He gave me space and never tried to replace my father. He was simply Holden, respectful and kind. At the beginning, everything seemed normal. But then, without warning, the small moments began. They were not obvious at first. They were so subtle that I almost didn't notice them. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen trying to reach a box on a high shelf. I stood on a chair, stretching my arm, but it was still too far. Suddenly, I heard a calm voice behind me. "Here, let me help." I turned and saw Holden. He walked over, reached up easily, and handed me the box. "Thank you," I said quickly. "No problem," he replied with a smile. His kind smile. But as he stood close, I felt something strange. My heart beat a little faster. I told myself it was nothing, just surprise. I pushed the feeling away and tried not to think about it. Another time my car wouldn't start. Panic filled me because I was already late for class. I didn't know what to do. Holden came outside and asked, "What's wrong?" "My car won't start," I said, frustrated and near tears. He opened the hood, worked on the engine for a few minutes, then told me to try again. I turned the key. The car roared to life. Relief washed over me. "Oh my gosh, thank you, Holden. You saved me," I said without thinking and hugged him quickly. It was just a thank you, hug. But in that moment, I felt something dangerous. I felt safe, completely safe, like nothing bad could ever reach me as long as he was there. I had not felt that kind of safety since my father was alive. I pulled away quickly, my cheeks burning. Holden just smiled as if everything was normal. But inside me, nothing felt normal anymore. Before I continue my story, please subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. After that hug by the car, nothing inside me felt the same again. I told myself it was just a small moment, nothing important. But my mind betrayed me. The memory of how safe I felt in Holden's arms returned again and again, no matter how hard I tried to forget. I reminded myself, he was my stepfather. He was my mom's husband. Loving him in any way beyond respect was wrong. I told myself over and over, but my heart did not listen. The small moments continued. Holden and I discovered that we liked the same old movies. My mom thought they were boring, but we both enjoyed them. One evening, when my mom went out with her friends, Holden asked, "There's an old movie on tonight. Want to watch it together?" I said yes, maybe too quickly. We made popcorn and sat on the couch. At first it felt simple, like watching with a friend. We laughed at the same parts and talked about the actors. But during a sad scene, tears slipped down my cheek. I tried to wipe them away fast, but Holden noticed. He said nothing, just quietly passed me a tissue. Our fingers touched for a second, a small brush of skin, but it sent a shock through me. My heart raced. He kept his eyes on the screen, calm as always, but inside me, everything felt like fire. Maybe he didn't feel it. Maybe it was only me. I prayed it was only me. Still, I started spending more time around him. My mom often worked late shifts at the hospital, leaving the two of us alone in the evenings. In the kitchen, while Holden cooked dinner, we would talk. I told him about my art projects, about my dreams of one day painting something meaningful. He told me about his job as an architect, about the buildings he worked on. He asked questions and remembered details, like the name of my professor, the struggles I had with one painting, or the book I was reading. He cared. He noticed things about me that no one else did. And that care pulled me closer to him in ways I didn't want. One Saturday, I was in the garage working on a large painting for school. The colors weren't working. My brush felt heavy. I grew frustrated and threw the brush to the ground. "It's not working!" I cried to no one. Holden appeared at the door, watching quietly. He stepped closer and studied my painting. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he asked softly, "What do you want this painting to say?" I explained my idea, my feelings, my failure. He listened carefully, then said, "Maybe you're trying too hard. Sometimes art needs space to breathe. Why don't we take a walk?" At first I wanted to refuse, but when I looked at his kind eyes, I agreed. We walked to the nearby park. The air was cool, the trees full of green. We didn't talk much at first. Slowly, he began to share a story from his own youth, about a project that frustrated him, about learning that sometimes you must step away to see clearly. His words calmed me. He made me feel like I wasn't alone in my struggle. When we came back, I looked at my painting again and suddenly knew what to do. "Thank you, Holden," I whispered. He smiled, And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized with horror that I wasn't just grateful for him. I wasn't just happy he was part of our family. I was falling in love with him. The thought sickened me. It was wrong. He was my mother's husband, my stepfather. But the more I tried to deny it, the stronger it grew. I started to avoid him after that. When he was in the kitchen, I stayed in my room. When he watched TV, I went to the library. I made myself busy so I wouldn't have to see him. The house, once full of laughter, grew quiet again. My mom noticed. One night she asked gently, "Is everything okay, sweetie? You've been so quiet." I forced a smile and lied. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a lot of schoolwork." She hugged me and said, "Don't work too hard. I miss talking to you." Her words stabbed at my heart with guilt. Holden noticed too. Sometimes I caught him watching me with a puzzled look, like he was trying to understand. One evening, he knocked on my bedroom door. "Arya, can we talk?" I froze. My heart beat too fast. I didn't want to open the door, but his voice was gentle, almost worried. "Please," he said. I opened the door slowly. He stood there, his face full of concern. "Did I do something wrong? You've been avoiding me. If I upset you, I'm so sorry." I shook my head quickly. "No, Holden. You didn't do anything. It's me. It's complicated." "You can talk to me," he said softly. "You know I'm here for you." And that was the problem. He was always there for me. He was kind, understanding, and gentle. Everything I had ever wanted in a person, but he wasn't mine to want. Tears filled my eyes. "I can't," I whispered and closed the door. Then I leaned against it and cried. I cried for my mom, for Holden, and for myself. I was trapped in feelings I could not control. The days grew heavier. I painted endlessly, trying to pour my emotions onto the canvas. My paintings became storms of dark and bright colors, messy like my heart. One Saturday, my mom was at work, and Holden was in the garden. I watched him from my window as he pulled weeds and planted flowers, trying to bring life back into the garden my father once loved. The sun was hot, his shirt damp with sweat, his hands covered in soil. My chest ached just looking at him. I knew then I couldn't continue this way. The secret love inside me was destroying me. I made a choice, a hard choice. I walked down to the garden, my legs shaking. "Holden, can we talk?" He looked up, wiping his hands. "Of course." We sat together on the small bench where my father once used to sit. "I'm going to move out," I said. His eyes widened. "Move out? Why? Is it because of me?" I couldn't tell him the truth. It would break everything. So I gave him part of it. "I'm almost 20. I need my own space. I want to be independent." To grow up. He looked at me for a long moment, his blue eyes searching mine. I felt as though he could see everything I was hiding. Finally, he nodded slowly. I understand, but this will always be your home, Arya. Always. Tears filled my eyes, but I forced a smile. I know. If you ever need anything at all, he said softly, I'm here. And that was the hardest part. He truly meant it. He was such a good man, and I had to leave him. I had to leave my home to protect my mom, to protect him, and to protect myself. A month later, I found a small apartment near my college. My mom was sad but proud. She thought I was being responsible, mature, ready for independence. She never knew the truth, and she never will. The day I moved was one of the hardest days of my life. My mom helped me pack, her eyes misty with tears. Call me every day, she said, hugging me tightly. I will, Mom, I promised. Holden carried my heavy desk up the stairs, helped build my bookshelf, and set things in place. He was quiet, but his presence made my heart ache. When everything was done, my mom hugged me again, and then it was Holden's turn. He stood in front of me, looking at me with an expression I couldn't name. Be happy, Arya, he said softly. It wasn't a command. It was a wish. You too, Holden, I whispered. He hugged me lightly, just for a second. But in that second, I felt everything. Love, sadness, regret, and all the what-ifs that could never be. Then he let go, and he was gone. When the door closed behind them, I was alone. Truly alone. The first weeks in my new apartment were the hardest of my life. The silence felt heavy, almost unbearable. I missed everything. The sound of my mom's laughter, the quiet steps of Holden in the hallway, the smell of coffee in the morning. My heart ached with loneliness. I cried at night, wondering if I had made a mistake. Maybe I should have stayed. Maybe I could have controlled my feelings. But deep down, I knew the truth. Distance was the only way to survive. I poured all my pain into my art. My small apartment became a place of colors, canvases, and brushes. I painted for hours, losing myself in the storm of my emotions. My paintings were messy, filled with both darkness and brightness. They reflected my confusion, my guilt, and my hidden love. One day, my professor looked at my work and said, Arya, your paintings are powerful now. They carry true emotion. Her words gave me a spark of hope. Maybe something good could come from my pain. I spoke with my mom on the phone every day. She always asked if I was eating well, if I was safe, if I was happy. I lied sometimes, telling her I was fine when in truth I was lonely. Every Sunday I visited for dinner. It was difficult to see Holden again, but it was also easier than I expected. There was space between us now, a safe distance. We spoke politely about my classes, about his projects, about little things. We smiled, but we both knew something unspoken sat quietly between us. As time passed, the sharpness of my feelings softened. The fire inside me became smaller, more quiet. I was still drawn to him, but the distance helped. Slowly, I began to build a life that was separate, a life that belonged only to me. A year went by. I grew used to my apartment, my independence. I made new friends at college. I even went on a few dates. One boy from my art class, Tom, was kind and funny. He wasn't Holden, and that was the point. With Tom, things felt light and simple. One Sunday, I came home for dinner as usual. My mom and Holden sat across from me, their hands joined. My mom's face glowed with happiness. "We have news," she said. My heart stopped for a second. I was afraid of what she might say. "We're going to have a baby." Her words echoed in the room. For a moment, I couldn't move. A baby. My mom was pregnant. Holden was going to be a father. I looked at him, and he was staring at my mom with eyes full of love. Then he turned to me, smiling with pure joy, and something inside me shifted. That last quiet ache of love I had been carrying for him, it disappeared. It was replaced with something new. Happiness. True happiness for them both. "That's wonderful," I said, smiling back. And for the first time, I meant it fully. 6 months later, my little brother was born. His name was Leo. He was perfect, with my mom's hair and Holden's blue eyes. When I held him for the first time, something magical happened. I looked down at his tiny face and felt my heart open. He was a new beginning, a new kind of love. The house was no longer quiet. It was filled with the sounds of a baby, cries, laughter, soft coos. It was filled with life again. I visited often, helping my mom with Leo, playing with him, feeding him, rocking him to sleep. My love for my brother was pure and strong, a love I could give freely with no guilt, no confusion. My relationship with Holden changed, too. He was no longer just my stepfather. He was Leo's father, my mom's husband, and in many ways, my friend. The dangerous feelings I once carried were gone. What remained was respect, gratitude, and a deep care for him as part of our family. Looking back, I understood my feelings in a new way. I had loved Holden, but it had been a confused love, born from loneliness and grief. After losing my father, I had been searching for safety, for comfort, for someone who listened. Holden gave me those things, and my heart mistook it for something else. But it was never meant to be. Now, my life was brighter. My paintings reflected it too. They were no longer dark storms. They were full of light, full of color. I painted scenes of my family, of gardens blooming again, of new beginnings. Holden had brought laughter back to my mom's life. He had brought love back into our home. He had been kind to me when I needed it most. For that, I would always be grateful. I knew I made the right choice when I left. It was the hardest choice of my life, but it saved me. It protected my mom. It protected Holden. And in the end, it protected me too. Life is not simple. It is messy, painful, and sometimes full of feelings we don't understand. But it can also be beautiful. I learned that it's okay to feel confused, but we must be strong enough to choose what is right, not what is easy. This was my story. It was hard to live and hard to tell, but it is my truth. And now I am free. To anyone who feels trapped in impossible feelings, be strong. You will survive the storm. Just keep going. And never forget to choose love. The right kind of love.